Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are tackling two of the absolute biggest names in web development, JavaScript and its powerful sibling, TypeScript. We're going to break down what they are, what makes them different, and most importantly, help you figure out which one is the right tool for your next job. So let's just get right into it. This is the big one, isn't it? It's a question that every developer, whether you're just starting out or you've been doing this for years, has to ask. Now, the answer isn't always a simple yes or no, but I promise, by the end of this, you are going to have a much clearer way to make that decision. All right, first up, the legend itself, JavaScript. This is the language of the web. It was created way back in 1995 just to make web pages, well, do stuff, to be interactive and dynamic. If you see a website with cool animations, or it updates in real time, or it has an interactive map, yep, you can bet JavaScript is the engine making it all happen. It runs in literally every browser, which makes it absolutely essential. And then we have the challenger, TypeScript. Now, Microsoft developed this, but it's not a totally separate language. The best way to think about it is JavaScript, but with superpowers. It's got an extra layer of features built right on top. And the most important feature, the one we're really going to be focusing on today, is something called optional static typing. It's specifically designed to make building and managing gigantic, complex applications way, way easier. So you might be thinking, okay, but if JavaScript was doing the job, why did we even need TypeScript? And that's a great question. To really get it, we need to look at the growing pains that JavaScript went through as the web just exploded in complexity. See, in the beginning, JavaScript was for pretty simple things, like making a button show a little pop-up message. But as the web grew up, so did our ambitions. We started building these massive applications. Think about something like Google Maps or Facebook, all using JavaScript. The problem was, JavaScript was never really designed for that kind of scale. As the codebases got bigger and bigger, they got really fragile. Bugs would pop up all the time, but only after the code was already out there for users to see. So in 2012, Microsoft came along with TypeScript as a solution to bring some order and predictability to that growing chaos. Okay, so TypeScript was created to solve a pretty big problem, but how does it actually do it? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at the core differences between them. If you strip everything else away, the single biggest difference between JavaScript and TypeScript all comes down to one concept: types. And by types, I just mean what kind of data your variables are holding. Is it a number? Is it a string of text? Is it a true or false value? The way these two languages handle this fundamental idea is what really sets them worlds apart. JavaScript uses what we call dynamic typing. I absolutely love this analogy. It's kind of like a chef who's cooking without a recipe. They're just tasting as they go, adding ingredients, changing things around. You don't really know if it's going to work until you take that final bite. Now, this is super flexible and really fast for small stuff. But if you accidentally grab the salt instead of the sugar, you're not going to find out until you serve the dish, or, in our world, until a user hits a bug. TypeScript, on the other hand, brings in static typing. And this is like following a super detailed recipe. The recipe tells you exactly what you need. 1 cup of flour, 2 eggs, no exceptions. Before you even preheat the oven, you can look at your ingredients and check them against the recipe to make sure everything's right. TypeScript does that for your code. It checks for those kinds of mistakes before you even try to run it. Let's make this real with a code example. In the JavaScript version, we've got a simple add function. If we mess up and pass it the number 5 and the text 10, JavaScript just shrugs and goes, okay, I guess you want to stick these together. And you get the string 510, a classic bug that you might not find for days. But now look at the TypeScript example. We've written the same function, but we added these little notes, these type annotations, telling it that both A and B have to be numbers. The moment we try to pass in a string, TypeScript screams at us. It flags an error right there in our editor, long before it ever has a chance to become a real problem. That's the safety net right there. This quote from the official docs just nails it. When your code is actually running in the browser, it's still just JavaScript. All the magic of TypeScript happens before that. It happens during development, where it's like having this incredibly smart assistant constantly looking over your shoulder, checking your work. So how does this all work? Well, you don't actually run TypeScript code in a browser. Instead, there's this quick little step called compilation. You write your code in a special TypeScript file, which ends in .ts. Then, the TypeScript compiler takes a look and checks for any type errors. If it's all good, it just erases all the type stuff you added and spits out a clean, plain old JavaScript file. This means, at the end of the day, you're still just sending regular JavaScript to the browser that can run absolutely anywhere. So we've got this trade-off, right? The safety net of TypeScript versus the pure flexibility of JavaScript. And honestly, neither one is the perfect choice for every single project. So let's break down the pros and cons of each. So why do so many developers, especially folks on big teams, just love TypeScript? Well, for a few huge reasons. For one, your code basically documents itself, making it so much easier for someone else, or you, 6 months from now, to understand. You catch a whole category of bugs before they even happen. Plus, your code editor suddenly becomes way smarter, giving you amazing auto-completion and making big changes to your code a breeze. This is why it's perfect for big, scalable apps, and why frameworks like Angular use it by default. But hold on. JavaScript is still a powerhouse, and for really good reasons. If you're just making a small project or writing a quick script, you don't have to bother with a compiler. You just write it, run it, and you're done. That flexibility is a massive win when you're just trying to get an idea off the ground fast. The learning curve is also a lot gentler. And remember, because TypeScript is built on JavaScript, that gigantic, incredible ecosystem of libraries, tutorials, and communities, it's all there for you. Okay, with all those pros and cons laid out, how in the world do you actually make a choice? Let's get down to some practical advice. This table is a really fantastic way to think about it. Just look at the first line, project size. Building something huge and complex that needs to last for years, yeah, TypeScript is probably your best friend. But just whipping up a small personal website or a little utility script, the speed of plain JavaScript is tough to beat. You can apply that same thinking to team size or what your main priority is. Are you building for the long haul, or do you need to move fast right now? Okay, let's say you've weighed your options and you're thinking, you know what, I'm ready to give TypeScript a try. So what's the best way to get started? Let's talk about some key things to keep in mind. As you get going, there are a few common pitfalls you really want to avoid. First, it's so tempting to just use the any type everywhere. Don't do it. It basically just turns TypeScript off. Second, when the compiler gives you an error, listen to it. Those errors are your friends, helping you catch bugs early. Also, it's so important to remember that TypeScript only protects you before the code runs. And finally, the absolute golden rule. You have to know JavaScript first. You just can't build a strong house on a shaky foundation. So what's a good learning path look like? Well, first things first, get really solid with modern JavaScript. I'm talking variables, functions, promises, the whole shebang. Then, don't try to boil the ocean. Just take a small JavaScript project you already have and start adding type annotations here and there. Finally, once you're feeling more confident, you can start digging into the tsconfig.json file. That's like the main control panel for TypeScript, and learning to use options like strict mode is where you'll really unlock its power. You know, I think this quote from a developer just captures that aha moment perfectly. So much of our time in JavaScript is spent writing all this extra code just to check if our data is what we think it is. TypeScript just does all of that work for you, automatically, letting you focus on what your app is actually supposed to do. So in the end, it really all boils down to picking the right tool for the right job. Neither one is just better than the other. They're just different. They solve different problems. So think about it. For your next project, is your story about the fast-paced flexibility of JavaScript, or is it about the long-term safety and structure of TypeScript? The answer to that will tell you exactly where to begin.